I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
That's right, Supergirl. We are talking season 5, episode 17, Deus Lex Machina. So many things happen, and yet I feel like we're missing an episode. What just happened to me? I got my Lex fill, but was it too much Lex? We're going to talk about the difference between perfume and poison, potatoes, potato, especially if you're Lex Luthor. Lena and Cara make up, or do they? So many things. It was a roller coaster ride of a Supergirl episode, especially coming off of that long break. Can't wait to discuss as we're getting down to the nitty gritty. And of course, if you don't know me, you don't know Supergirl, I am Tehran, hosting this after show regarding CW Supergirl Season 5, Episode 17, Deus Lex Machina. I swear I'm saying that wrong. I might name my kid that. I don't know. In the back, I have my own Wizard of Oz. My man Ryan Nielsen is holding it down. Hey, Ryan,
The
how
man
are you?
behind the curtain is here, and I cannot wait to break down the directorial debut of Melissa Benoist's episode of Supergirl on CW. It's back. It was gone, but at least we have some glorious shine of light during this quarantine pandemic.
I'm just happy you broke down how to pronounce her last name, Melissa Benoist, and that's how she pronounces it. We actually had to look it up because, of course, with the French, you want to say Benoit, Benoit, and they pronounce the T. You would think the T is silent, but if she says Benoist, who am I to correct her from saying her own last name? Melissa did a fantastic job directing this episode, and we're going to break it down as thus. CW Supergirl Season 5, Episode 17, Deus Lex Machina. What is Leviathan? We still don't know, or do we? Family reunion. We get the post-crisis updates filling in the loopholes of why Lex is Lex, what Lex is doing. We get the family reunion between Lex, his mother, and of course, when he welcomes back Lena, and the manipulation that goes on there. Recruiting Tessmacher. Tessmacher, of course, being the one who killed Lex in the first place. This incantation of Tessmacher is different. We recruit her, we bring her on board, and then we break her heart. That broke my heart too. And I don't even have a heart. Platinum, Obsidian Platinum is the plan. Lex Luthor, the bartender. Lex Luthor's bald, but not when he's serving drinks. This guy had a wig going down to his shoulder length. Who or what is a Margot? We find out why the episode began with the death of Margot. Margot, of course, being the carekeeper or the Leviathan agent, however you see her. If you remember from going in, all the bodies that were stacked up, she was the carekeeper who was keeping the bodies of those who were trapped in Obsidian. Lena and Cara make up. I touched on that in the intro because Lena and Cara seem to have a very touching moment and then go right back into full-fledged, I hate you, I don't trust you, you're a liar. It's basically like there was infidelity in a relationship, and Lena is always looking for a reason Cara is cheating or doing something wrong. We also have Richard Bates being the key. Richard Bates comes up a lot in this episode. Now, being that it's such a small part yet seems so integral because it's the key that kind of exposes everything. We're going to talk some Richard Bates. Brainy's help. Lex needs Brainy's help, and Brainy's all for it. Brainy goes in. Basically, everyone is going to en passant Lex's plans. He's playing this game of chess, and when he's not calculating something, he gets very upset. But of course, Lex Luthor fashion, he's able to make up for it and make it happen. We get the little tad on Marriott again. Of course, Lex is in the house, meaning we end with Lex in the Fortress of Solitude, Supergirl's super lair, passed along to her by her cousin, Superman, who is absent. And we need to know what is going on because this episode left me with way more questions than I had answers. We're, of course, going to do our special segment, Supergirl, where we choose a woman icon who is changing the world, a true superhero in the world. We'll, of course, have some news and gossip, and we're going to play the predictions game. Is there a way to actually predict? I doubt it, but we're going to try. Especially with everything going on, we've touched on this before. With everything going on with the quarantine and, of course, the pandemic, it is changing our Supergirl schedule. It's changing how it's going to play out. However, we're going to still get a lot more of the season and a lot more of a season finale. So it's good to look forward to a lot of things. Overall thoughts. I was starting to begin with how confused I am. That's because I'm not the only one. A lot of people felt confused with this episode. Wow, this was an amazing, fun, good, filling episode. It seemed as if I was missing an episode in between, as if there was an episode 16.5, which I did not watch because there was too far of a jump and a gap, especially coming off episode 16 being so long ago. There was too much of a gap, and we've been asking for more Lex, but I don't know if we got Lex the way we wanted to get Lex. If this was the Lex that we wanted or the next that we deserved. Ryan, did I say that right or did I say that wrong again?
I think it's a matter of not the
Doesn't
hero
matter.
we just.
So, thank you. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you. So the concept is whether I said it right or not, you knew what I meant. And even my sentence, which was complex, was less confusing than this episode coming to play. However, this episode, while it gave us a lot of questions, it also answered a lot of questions for us. And what I mean by that is specifically, it answered the concepts of what Lex's plan was and who Lex Luthor is coming off post crisis. We'd always gotten tids and bits of Lex, but we never got a true Lex explanation. This one is supposed to do that. This is the one that does it in a way which tells us what's going on with Lex's plan. We still have no concept if his plan is good or bad. He obviously still does hold a grudge for the Kryptonians, as his mother points out very quickly. You have a grudge. It's been your demise. Stop bringing it up. And he ends it. He bookends it by he tempers his grudge and yet bookends it by going right back into the grudge. So much to discuss. Let's talk about what Leviathan is. With all this explanation over this period of this 5th season of Supergirl, I still have no idea what Leviathan is. Yes, it's an organization that's been working to facilitate. Is it the destruction of Earth? Is it to facilitate their concept of a dystopian future? Is it their concept of pushing what they think their morality is or inflicting it on everyone? We still don't exactly know. We obviously know that they mean to endanger people. They obviously have a sinister plan. And anytime you're an extremist, you are clearly a sinister or have a hidden agenda. You clearly are maniacal and diabolical in your formation. So we do know these things about Leviathan, but we don't know anything. We know very little about who Gemma is. Gemma, of course, Gamine, and that interchangeable name use was used to the point where even the character Lex had to point it out several times. What do we call you? Gemma, Gamine. What do we call you? How do we address you? It comes up in the storyline. And of course, she is this goddess of technology, of somehow ancient in ways and yet still progressive in technology. Once again, a confusing entity. We had gotten the Earth God. We've got just different incantations and different variations of characters, and we don't know how they come together. I'm hoping, giving the benefit of the doubt to the season, that it's going to tie up neatly. I do not know, because of the quarantine, how effective it will be or allowed to be because of the restrictions placed clearly on filming during the pandemic. So we might not get the finale we are supposed to. Hopefully, they will answer a lot more of these questions. What is Leviathan? Who is Leviathan? Where is Leviathan? How is Leviathan? If we could get some Leviathan answers, I'd be very happy. That would be something that actually helps me, because the concept of it just simply being this fictional criminal organization that DC Comics has is different. This is different. Is it still the schism between or the break off between the League of Assassins under with Talia, with Ra's al Ghul's daughter? Is it that? We don't exactly know. I mean, that's why it's such a different concept. Why is there so much mystery shrouding this organization that we don't even know how it works? And we're watching the audience, even if on the show someone shouldn't know who the killer is, As the audience, we should kind of have an idea, unless it's one of those whodunit movies. Well, in this case, it isn't a whodunit. We know who done it. Leviathan done it. And yet we're stuck wondering what Leviathan is, whether it's this concept. Of course, the meaning of it coming from that Old Testament with the Psalm 74:14, the multi-headed sea serpent that is killed by God and given as food to the Hebrews in the wilderness. Yes, we understand that the serpent represents the symbol of Israel's enemies. That's the name Leviathan. But what is Leviathan in Supergirl? Like we know more about Leviathan as a biblical entity than we do about Leviathan in Supergirl. We know more about Leviathan in DC manifested folklore than we do know about it in Supergirl. That's what my problem is. That's why we all have so many issues with Leviathan. If Gemma is all powerful and a goddess in some way and a goddess of technology, then why is she lacking in what's going on with Obsidian? Why is Lex able to get ahead of her with technology? Why is she not able to tap into things? We see her digitize. We see her digitize. They have cloaking technology that's beyond the means. It reminds me of Star Trek Next Generation Cleon cloaking technology, right? We also get that nod to Deanna Troy being inhabited by an alien in Star Trek Next Generation with the voice coming out of Gemini when she's speaking in her digitized form. So why do we not know anything concrete, substantive, or definitive about Leviathan? Yes, am I annoyed by this? Yes, am I upset by this? Yes. Do I want more? It's out of general concern. It's because I love this show so much. I want to know who and what Leviathan actually is. This buildup, this is the longest tease of ever. This is just the longest foreplay of a setup for a villain ever, to the point where I'll be very honest, we are losing interest in the concept of Leviathan. Are they in or are they out? Going back to Liberty, at least with Liberty, we knew who the villain was. We could point and figure out his reasoning was complete. This is why Liberty acted the way he did. This is how he got to that point. It was very concise and to the point and was an amazing story arc. And we were all on board for it. I do not agree that we are all on board for Leviathan. However, I do know that we are all on board for Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor is the quintessential villain of DC Comics. This is brains versus brawn. This is genius and brilliance. And we see this in this episode because Lex, in playing chess with his mother, basically allegorizes the concept of his manipulative plan to the game of chess he's playing. And it's effective and it's definitive. We know who Lex Luthor is, and getting to see all these loopholes, starting from the end of the episode and then working our way back so that we understand what is going on with Lex. Do we exactly understand why Lex killed Margot? Honestly, no. We watched it, we understood the words that were coming out of their mouth, but we don't know why Lex specifically killed Margot, except that he has a plan to get on Leviathan's ship because his plan is to destroy or take down Leviathan. This is imperative to him, so much so that he has placed his Kryptonian feud to the side. He needs to destroy Leviathan, which we are assuming is a good thing. Leviathan, obviously the villain, obviously the bad aspect or the protagonist of this episode, but Lex Luthor is also a villain. Lex Luthor is cold-hearted. If nothing else, the way he basically demoralizes and destroys Tessmacher, just destroying Tess. Sheesh. That was just brutal. That is brutal, classic Lex Luthor. Setting someone up like Tess to be enamored by him, to ensure her loyalty, and then breaking her down instead of gently, but saying, no, I now have the power over you that you thought, or at least Leviathan did have over you. I have that power over you now. You will do as I say. You will be subservient to my will, and I won't do it out of creating a system of relations with you. No, I'm going to do it by endangering those you love. That is what he did after Tess basically confesses her love to Lex Luthor after He did everything to ensure her loyalty and love. He treated her well. He spoke to her well. He honestly, Lex Luthor is the F boy of the century right now. He got this girl to fall madly head over heels in love with him. And then instead of going with it, which he could have used, he said, "No, in another world, you played me. I hold this grudge against you. I'm going to destroy you. I'm never going to give this a chance. I'm going to be by myself and be cold hearted because you distracted me. I was actually offended when you killed me, basically. I was offended because I did not see that coming and I will never let it happen again. Those agents that I have outside of your house, they're Mossad agents that are there that if you don't do my bidding, I will have your mother killed. I will have your mother killed." Who says that? Lex Luthor says that. Diabolical Lex Luthor, which is why we question if his motives are good. If destroying Leviathan, is it the concept of the enemy of my enemy is my friend? In this case, I do not think so. I think that is extremely difficult for me to swallow, a difficult pill for me to swallow, to think that Lex Luthor is the enemy of the enemy and therefore my friend. Lex Luthor seems to want his own world domination. He wakes up in a world where he is now the hero. He's won a Nobel Prize. He's Time Person of the Year. All these accolades that the old Lex wishes and yet never received recognition, acknowledgement, or was in the position to achieve. Of course not. You're a villain, Lex. You are a villain. Even in doing what you are and saying and what seems to be the supposed good, you're doing it in the most villainous of ways possible because you are Lex, because it is your nature. It is your nature. It is your nature to be Lex Luthor. We get this family reunion and we see Lex and his mother. And honestly, this is a phrase we use about certain aspects of people's bodies, but Lex got it from his mama. He get it from his mama. That's who he gets it from. His mom, his mother, when he explains the multiverse collapse into a single universe and how it all works, and he's not the son that she raised, she's like, okay, I can't cry over spilt milk. We have to look to the future. Here's tea without sugar because I know you. Regardless, you're my son. That's what she says. She says that in a way that only it's like cold blood, ice cold blood, ice water in her veins. Just her blood is ice water. That is the Luthor trait. She passes this on to Lex. Lex is cold, calculated, and she even warns Lex to be cold and calculating. Like, as cold and calculating as you are, you need to be more cold and calculating. You have to be more definitive against your vendetta with Leviathan and Supergirl. We have to choose these things. I'm not sure who I'm afraid of more. I'm not sure who's the more dangerous one, mother or son, because both are villainous. Just because mother plays the special victim, the mother plays the innocent, mother plays the I'm just going along to get along. She is clearly the catalyst of so many of these villainous activities. I don't understand who we need to come through and be the hero here. This is what I mean, this family reunion. Then, of course, and you see this in their family reunion with Lena. Lena obviously is told, but she's asleep. He keeps her asleep so he can do more. And then the mother is basically, Lex's mother is basically like, well, we need Lena. You need to do this with Lena. You need to convince her to be on the side. You have to do whatever it takes. And of course, and basically does the you catch more flies with honey than you catch more flies with honey than you do vinegar. Does one of those. And so Lex is extra sweet and trusting and enabling of Lena and allows Lena the freedom and the respect of being a partner. And yet Lena is also being manipulated. So for Lena, who's a very is very adamant about the truth, is very big on this is the truth. What does the truth mean? I can't believe Cara lied to me. Oh, Cara, you lied to me. Lena, on the other hand, is around a consistent psychological, pathological liar. Lex Luthor, this is a person who's clearly deceptive and manipulative and has a hidden agenda. And I understand that blood is thicker than water, but this blood will drown you. This blood will drown you. This is a person you cannot trust. And honestly, do I feel that Lex was as convincing as need be for Lena to be on board? I am going to go on a limb and say that Lena convinced herself. Lena convinced herself and is basically projecting onto Luthor. She doesn't trust Lex, but she's willing to go with the lesser of two evils, which somehow she's been sold or bought on the concept that it's Lex Luthor and not Supergirl. How is that even possible? How? How do you think that Supergirl is the enemy and Lex Luthor is your friend? Yes, let's forgive and forgo the point that he's your brother and that's why. He's never been a great brother. He's always been a horrible brother to you. So why do you feel such an affinity, Lena? Why is this the way you are going or leading in that direction? I do not understand it. I do not understand it. Tessmacher, another person Lex manipulated into joining, basically by saving her from Leviathan and yet throwing her to the wolves, which is himself. Saving her for Leviathan, cold-heartedly killing the victim and target that she was after. She's being threatened, and now we all have a soft spot for Tess because Tess, what? Tess is merely trying to protect her loved ones. She's going along because they're threatening her loved ones, and now she's going to do the same thing with Lex Luthor. Wow. Shifting over to the platinum, the concept of obsidian, Lex's plan is simply to get on the ship. It seems like there should be an easier way to get on Leviathan's ship other than creating obsidian, making sure it malfunctions, making sure Leviathan's involved, making sure Leviathan takes the fall, making sure that Lex Luthor solves the fall, and then making sure that Leviathan invites Lex Luthor onto the ship. Seems like a long way to go for a short bit of money. That's what it seems like. And in comedy, it's a very, if you have a very long bit and the payoff isn't good, that joke's just not funny. In this situation, you have a very long, you're looking at the long form, you're looking at the long shot, you're looking at the overall, and yet it seems to be that you're going very far to get to a very close distance, simply because getting on the ship to Leviathan should involve something. And how do you get invited? Lex has decided to destroy the world in order to simply get invited on the ship so that he can prevent the destruction of the world. Seems like an oxymoron to me. Seems like it's a repetitive, repeating pattern. Seems like it's one of those things that's just going to go off the hinges. There's no good way to end this except with someone's death. And it looks like, in my opinion, and we will get to that in predictions, it will be Lex Luthor in some way, but we don't know. Lex tends to never die. However, you get this concept of platinum and how it's failing, and then Andrea Rojas, who's actually seems to be on the side of good. We need more of that storyline. What's going on with Obsidian Platinum? We understand it's in 100 countries in less than a month. And it took cell phones 40 years to do the same numbers, basically. We get that. But Andrea, are you on the side of good or bad? We get a lot of gray areas in these episodes. There's a lot of gray, and we're just tired of the gray. Let's color it in. Let's whittle it down. Let's start getting to the meat and the crutch of this season, because it's been just going and going, and it seems that we're running out of steam for it. Lex Luthor, it's the bartender, though, I would never run out of steam for, because it was fun to watch Lex Luthor play to Richard Bates and to have the long hair and play this mild-mannered bartender who's baiting Richard Bates. That is a thing that happened. Ryan, what do you think about Lex Luthor with long hair? Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate that. So let's get on to the concept of the bartender. We see Richard Bates going into the bar, and of course, Lex Luthor is baiting him to do exactly what he ends up doing. And we're getting these updates in increments, meaning that it tells us what the date is. It tells us we're 15 days, 45 days, 90 days post crisis. It's giving us these updates. We're getting an epilogue to the prologue. It's a lot to think about and a lot to process. We see that Lex Luthor baits Richard Bates. Richard Bates, of course, falls for the bait. We have seen already. We're getting the backside. We're getting the insider scoop. We're getting the inside the baseball version. We're sipping all the tea, all the things that we understood the visual, or we understood one side of. Now there's two sides to every story, and then there's the truth. We're getting the second side of the story. We're getting what went into creating, making, manipulating all these things. Richard Bates, of course, being manipulated by Lex Luthor into going straight into uh, basically creating that or exploiting that loophole in Obsidian, causing others and being with others who join him. And that's going to be the salvation of Lex Luthor, is by exploring and fixing and collaborating and destroying that loophole that is going to entrap so many people and being able to exterminate so many people at the same time. So we get that, and Lex Luthor, the bartender, plays that, the hippy dippy bartender. It's just cool to be around, and gives the advice. Very, very cliche, and yet very, very, very good and fun and explorative. And I hope to see more of that concept. Who or what is Margot? Margot is a part of Leviathan. Margot is middle management. Margot is, of course, the one who's hiding and storing and being with the bodies, but we don't really know Margot. We know nothing of Margot, and before we do, of course, she's killed. Hopefully, we get more tidbits regarding Margot. I'd love to know her storyline, simply because we were so vested and invested in her as a person. We kept seeing recurrence of her popping up and in. Of course, we saw the same with the bodies in the ward that um, she was taking care of. So she was fostering. I just want to know who Margot was. Just like Lex. Lex is, who or what is a Margot? We never get that answer. We just get nods to who Margot is. Margot didn't put up much of a fight. Margot seemed to have a lot of steam in previous episodes. Let's not change Margot's character. I hope we see her back. I'd love to get more of her backstory. That seems like something very exciting. Also, I think it ties and plugs into a lot more of Leviathan than we will realize. Why and who is Margot, and why is this all happening? We understand with Lex. Lex is searching somehow for immortality in some way. Lex, of course, being killed himself, is just looking for how to live forever. It seems that way. At least that seems to be a precursor to his objective and his wants. It's just interesting we don't learn anything new about Margot, except now that she's dead because Lex shot her in an attempt to free the people that we know he was part of locking up in the first place, so he can garner goodwill with Leviathan and with Supergirl and then make his way. So now he's going to enter not only the Fortress of Solitude, but he's also afterwards going to enter the Leviathan ship, and we're going to see how that plays up. Lena and Cara make up. Lena and Cara have this moment. They have a moment in the place where Lena approaches Cara and says basically, and explains basically, hey, I'm sorry about your father. Interesting backstory to, of course, to Alexis's and Kara's noted stepfather or father figure, and of course Alexis's father. We get that Tess was basically manipulated by Lex to kill him because she's under the impression that he killed her family. That's how they played it. Like, that's really how they played it. That's what I'm talking about, how this was such a good, interesting, fun episode, that Melissa Benoist did such a great job. Very good. Actually, cinematically, it was great. We saw a lot of great angles and a lot of great action with this. So I like the concept that Tess inadvertently murdered Supergirl's father, well, under the guise that Supergirl's father was an agent of Leviathan who was responsible for the murder of her father. So we get this cycle, it's reciprocal. It's going to be something that leads somewhere even further. We're going to go down that rabbit hole. I can't wait to see how that plays out. Lena and Cara make up, and then immediately, and when I say immediately, I mean within the episode, Lena feels betrayed by Cara again because Cara is, by the suggestion of Lex through Brainy to Cara, using Myriad to interfere with her work, but by doing so, interfering with the Q waves, which are offsetting all these entrapped individuals, entrapped souls into Obsidian Platinum. And so, well, once again, Supergirl's doing the right thing. Lena takes it the wrong way and feels betrayed. Oh no, you betrayed me. You said no one could use Myriad, but obviously the rules don't apply to you, Supergirl. Oh, I hate you so much. Like, get over it. You're the one who goes around with murderers and consorts with murderers and kidnappers and killers. And that's just your family, Lena. Get over it. Please understand that all of these things are just means to an end, and Supergirl's end is to do what's best for everyone. Supergirl's never going to want to destroy everything. And Lex makes the comment, it's Supergirl is a person who, if she sneezed wrong, she could destroy the planet. We haven't seen that kind of strength from Supergirl, to be very honest. It was something that was very misplaced. I understand he might be prone to an exaggeration, but that was a little too much and a little too far. He pushed the envelope on that. Clearly, Supergirl is unable to break the planet with a simple sneeze. She has a hard time breaking people's backs with her super strong bare hands. So let's be very honest and forthcoming with that. Richard Bates is the key. Richard Bates is clearly the key to everything. There's more to Richard Bates. Richard Bates is a pawn. At the same time, he may be a bishop. We don't know. We do know that Richard Bates is the reason why that there was the loophole fighting, and a lot of people fell into his trap. So Richard Bates seems to be an integral part, and it's someone who I never thought would come up again, and yet consistently does. So it's someone that is worthy of paying attention to. I'm sure there's got to be a payoff for Richard Bates. And if not, then why keep utilizing and using his character? Let him go, let him be free. If that's not the point, if we're not supposed to pay attention to him and he's such a horrible guy, then it's like another relationship and just let him go. I would also like to take this time to thank all the people I would never let go. That's all of you at home who comment below. Thank you so much for being on board, being part of the family, for commenting, suggesting, giving us your ideas, your theories, your ideologies, your knowledge. A lot of you have a lot of knowledge. We appreciate the shares, likes, and subscribes. Please spread the word, share the words, share the love. Just don't share Corona. If you're listening to us on iTunes, give us that 5-star rating we so greatly deserve. And thank you for making us the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let's get to Brainy and Brainy's help. I don't like this version of Brainy, this non fun. Serious Brainy is just not bringing anything specific to the table. Serious Brainy seems to be extremely, what's a good word to describe it? Boring. Serious Brainy just, even the voice is boring. I'm starting to dislike. I'm starting to dislike not only just Serious Brainy, but I'm starting to dislike the concept of Jesse Rath. I just like, come on, buddy, let's do something. It's just sad. It seems to be sad. It seems to be very monotone. And I understand it's Brainy, so, but before it was at least with a humorous undertone. There was a lot of component to Brainy. This Brainy is basically pitiful and seems to be very much a pawn, specifically doing everything to Lex's to Lex's fulfillment for a plan or a cause he does not understand, which I do not think of a 12th level intellect. I would think a 12th level intellect would be able to decipher that Lex is up to a sinister, no good plan. And yet, Brainy has fallen in. There's no Nia. I need something with him and Nia. There needs to be more. Brainy's character is just, I'm just falling out of love with Brainy's character. Let's be very frank. I'm falling out of love with Brainy's character. I want Brainy's character to be have a resurgence, to be fun again. Make Brainy fun again. That should be a hat or something. Let's get some red hats made with make Brainy fun again. Like, why is Brainy just a consummate downer? And even Myriad, do you not know that you're a pawn? That Myriad is possibly the most dangerous item on Earth right now, and you're just casually suggesting in a way that Supergirl, this is the only way to do it. And sure, even Lena says, I've thought of 6 other ways we could have done this. And Cara goes straight to Myriad, straight to interfering, straight to creating and destroying that bond between her and Lena again, because she's, of course, going against something she said. She's going against something that she deciphered and put up and made a rule. That's actually the worst. It's clearly hypocrisy at its finest. And that is what makes Lena so mad, even though she's also a hypocrite. So I understand your anger if you weren't you. Going back to the concept of Myriad is what pushes pushes Lena back over the edge. And of course, in doing so, she inserts the code to the Fortress of Solitude on her dimensional interchangeable transport. And that is one that Lex Luthor has at the end. We also, of course, get We get the monster hurling towards Earth, and we get John Jones and his cousin fighting this monster, and of course Supergirl wearing her suit, going into outer space and exploding the capsule on the monster, reverting it back to its infant stage, its less dangerous stage. Also, what the heck was all that? Like, why? Where did that come from? Yes, I understand that we had seen it, but we don't understand why this just plays into Lex's plan. It'd be different if he was responsible for it. He simply basically maybe predicted it or simply encouraged to happen. There just needs to be more. If you're gonna fill it holes, if you're gonna fill in holes, then you shouldn't. I shouldn't be asking more questions when the episode's done than when it began. The only question that I do have and that I can't wait to have answered is what Lex will do in the Fortress of Solitude. So this all culminates and ends with Lex being in the Fortress of Solitude and doing the most. Of course, we don't know what he's about to do, but we do know that even throughout conversations with him and his mother, he has this constant grudge with Kryptonians, and this is his best way to destroy it. Absolute power corrupts, absolutely, and Lex Luthor will corrupt even more. Hopefully, we don't see more Supergirl. Those are the two things that Gandhi said he could never predict. That is a quote from Gandhi. If you don't like it, let's blame Gandhi. Let's get into our special segment, Supergirls, where we choose Supergirl, a hero, and we discuss them and tell you and make you aware of their existence. Now, the person I'm going to talk about today is actually a Supergirl, and I mean that in the literal and the hypothetical and the rhetorical sense. Melissa Benoist. Melissa Benoist is Supergirl. We love her. In October, baby, Melissa Benoist is both an actress and a singer. So a lot of people don't realize that she's actually a singer. She's been trained. She loves singing. It's a great prominent role for her. She began with her. She was on actually Glee from 2013 to 2014 with Marley Rose, and that's what I was saying, as in she is displaying her talent for singing. And then, of course, she was in Whiplash, Danny Collins, The Longest Ride, Patriots Day, Lowriders, Sundogs, and even portrayed David Koresh's wife in that miniseries Waco. So this is a Broadway. This is a Broadway. She's a Broadway acclaimed actress at this point. She actually was on Broadway in 2018 as Carole King in the beautiful uh, Carole King musical, right? So Carole King, not to be confused with Carole Baskin, just to let you know. She's a Texas baby, born and raised Texas. She also then she went and was raised in Colorado, Denver, Colorado, after her parents separated. We've seen a lot of her work, but most importantly, we need to know about who she is. We, of course, know a lot about her personal life because she is married. She's married to our buddy, Chris. She's married to our buddy, Chris. Of course, he was on the show. So it's great that she was married. She's married to one of our favorite, to Dax from the show. And so we love seeing that about her. She was also involved in a relationship with Blake Jenner. That relationship was obviously a very toxic one, and it's what led her. Uh, she was they were engaged and married, and then they divorced for irreconcilable differences. Of course, that's what led to her. And this is where it comes into why she's a Supergirl. Her philanthropy, working with abused, battered women with toxic relationships. She actually spoke up about this. This was a big deal. She also works because of she, with Chris Wood. She went on to work on the I Don't Mind website regarding mental illness, depression, anxiety, things that she personally said she's dealt with since she was 13. And of course, her and Chris Wood are engaged, married, had a kid, or having a kid, expecting their first child. And this is actually playing into our lives as Supergirl, as we're going to get a delayed season 6. well, with quarantine, we don't know how the date's going to work out because of her pregnancy. We congratulate them. They're amazing. I remember on March, specifically, they announced it on Instagram. It's such an amazing, wonderful relationship, and we're all for it. That's the relationship we're shipping. We're not shipping Supergirl and the guy on the show. We're just not shipping that relationship at all. That is a real thing, even though we do really like Stas Nair. We like Stas, I just don't ship that relationship. Sorry. Let's get into some news and gossip, shall we? News and gossip.
TV news.
Ooh, I'm bringing it up as we speak. So I just wanted you to know, so we get a lot of news and gossip regarding Supergirl. The best is, of course, Melissa Benoist, her directorial debut, explains why on EW.com, explains why directing Supergirl's Lex-centric hour was daunting. It was something that was daunting. That is not a word you use every day. Ryan, when is the last time you used the word daunting to express anything?
Right before I was producing this show, I was getting set up, sitting down, and I told my fellow producers it was a daunting task to be doing a solo with Tehran for Supergirl, but I was up for it and inspired by Melissa.
You feel like doing this with me is daunting? That's what I heard. Is that what you're saying, Ryan Nielsen?
That's right.
You feel like it's a daunting task?
And exciting. I meant to say exciting. I thought you
This
asked
is-
for exciting.
Okay, exciting. Oh, okay, yes. Sometimes
You
people
meant
get
daunting.
confused. Yes, daunting with Daunting.
Ah.
Very different. Exciting. Exact. Some people confuse them. A lot of people, especially in Scrabble, words
with friends.
Yeah, a lot of people confuse daunting and exciting.
I'm one of those people.
Yeah, I understand, Ryan Nielsen, and you're lucky I'm not Lex Luthor. Anyway, Supergirl definitely is not complaining about the Lex Luthor because this was one of their biggest episodes. However, she did feel like it was daunting. She's been waiting to be a director for a long time. She's been, and I quote, dying to get her behind the camera since season 3. But now she finally has and the title was very clever, of course. Deus Lex Machina. It basically is a lot. A lot happens with flashbacks. It's not easy. We saw a lot. It was definitely a transition heavy, exposition heavy episode. A lot of things. And of course, working with Cryer. Cryer is a pro. You had a lot going on. Melissa gives a very full and inspiring interview with EW and explains all of the thrills and the chills and anything. She, of course, knows that the tone is basically a villainous one. She expresses the nature of this episode being very expository and how it works from her perspective, and being so close to a project and yet trying to be a director and being a director, very difficult thing. So we're very happy. Thank you, Melissa. You delivered honestly an amazing. This was one of the better or best episodes of the season. Besides the crossover was of course amazing, but this was a very good, very well directed episode. Unfortunately, there were loopholes simply because we jumped too far ahead. There was just a missing part, but none of that was your fault, Melissa. It was such a wonderful episode. Thank you so much for bringing this to us. Let's jump into some predictions.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV.
I'd love to predict things. It's very
predictions.
difficult to predict. I would have never predicted that we would have got this episode. So it's very difficult to predict. However, I do believe that we will get a direct conflict between Leviathan and Lex Luthor. I do believe that we will find a redemption for Lena, finding that Lex Luthor was the greater of the two evils, that she needs to be more forgiving of Cara, and that Cara and her friendship exceeds menial things like white lies regarding Kara being Supergirl. I do believe this. I do also believe that the universe, the singularity will come into play and somehow will play into Lex's plans. And I think that showing us this digitized form of Leviathan, somehow there will be a way for Lex to also turn himself into a god. I think that that's where we're leading and heading. Obviously, that last one is a very far-fetched idea. So if I'm right, I should get all the gold stars, just to remind you. Until then, where you can find me to give me some gold stars is easy. Find me at I am Tehran all across the board. That's IAMTEHRAN on all social media platforms. And of course, hosting and paneling on a slew of other AfterBuzz after shows because all of your favorite TV shows are my favorite TV shows too. Ryan Nielsen, where can people find you?
You can find me at Supergirl Tehran on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you so much for making us the ESPN of TV Talk.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Now let's go back to your corner. Find us next week as we talk more Supergirl, CW Supergirl. We're still season 5. Until then, up, and away.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.